Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by someone on the show here who we've been speaking about for a long time. We've been talking about getting it sorted out. We're finally here. Sapna, how are you?
Hi, it's really good to be here. It's such a pleasure. I'm finally in the studio in the Toby Babb Hall of Fame.
Well, listen, we nearly got there once before, but we'll talk about that another time. But right now you're here. And it is a great conversation. We were talking about it just now. I love the whole world of sales in this space.
Yep.
You've been at the pinnacle of that industry for some time now. Mm-hmm. We're going to go through your history. We're going to talk a little bit about the changing face of sales within the space. We're going to be talking about this sort of AI versus SaaS debate.
Yeah.
Talk about products, marketing and sales and how they all mesh together. And loads of stuff in between. So I'm excited about this one. This is right up my street as FinTech Focus episodes go. So
excellent.
Let's get going on it all. Let's start off with introductions. So Sapna, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing at the moment.
All right. So I have sort of grown up within the technology space, I'd say, and essentially moved over to sales, having done sales engineering and support prior to that. And actually, when I first started in sales, it was the head of sales at the firm I was at, and it was Orc at the time. And he said to me, Sapna, I want you to join me in the sales team. And I was like, no, I can't be doing that.
What was your take on that sort of phase? Why was it not to go over there?
I just wasn't someone who would be very comfortable going out and speaking to people. Yeah. And alas, here I am on screen.
Turned out all right after all.
Turned out all right. But I think, the reason it was easy-ish for me was because I got the product. I understood what was going on. For me, I was talking about what the firms were doing at quite a deep level. So I felt like I was almost a translator where I could speak to business and I could speak to technology or I could speak to developers and, translate across all of those various languages because they're not the same conversation you're having with everybody. So it felt very natural for me to have those conversations. So once I'd done it a couple of times, I was like, okay, this isn't so bad after all. But, I still think that technology side is absolutely brilliant to keep a hand in, and being within sales and in this environment, you have to do it.
Yes.
So I've been doing sales for quite some time, and then was working as head of sales. And after that, I had a kid, and I had a kid before that. Before I was head of sales, and I had this moment where I was like, this is too much because a head of sales role doesn't come for free. People think, this is the next trajectory, this is on my career path, but there's so much time and effort that you need to put into it. You don't get the paycheck, you don't get the salaries and the bonuses as a head of sales, just like that.
Yeah.
It does require weekends, it does require evenings, it does require early morning starts. And I was at a time when, my kid needed me a little bit more. So I was like, I'm going to step back. I'm going to be an individual contributor, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. And for me, that was becoming a fractional salesperson.
Yeah.
Working for a couple of different firms. So now I'm still working with Arb Trading, who are a Chicago-based trading platform, arcade, bringing in traders into the group. Which is actually it's a lot of fun for me as a salesperson on the technology side. I'm getting involved in conversations that I was never privy to before. At the time I was working with NovaSparks a couple of days a week, and it works really, really well, actually finding that sort of fractional basis, because not everyone needs a full-time salesperson. For some people, it's just, we're quite small, we're quite niche within the space. Just bring in your contacts, bring in your clients, and let's have these conversations. And then more recently, I've been working on other consulting projects or shorter term consulting projects. And that's where, with the conversation we're having today, I'm really looking at, because like you, I love the whole sales process. I love people. I love actually seeing sales teams, building sales teams. It was one of the favorite parts of my role as a head of sales, just building the team. And, during that period, it went from, I had no one else on my team to 6 people. It was a big commitment there, but I loved it.
Yeah.
As hard as it was, I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So
yes, there is a time and a space of being an individual contributor, but actually if I can take the bits that I've really enjoyed about being a head of sales
Yeah.
in a fractional capacity,
Yeah.
how can I help people who are at that sort of C level to expand where they don't necessarily have the capacity to do it themselves? Because we all know everyone is crazy busy.
I was just speaking to someone about that earlier on today, and I think you do get busy, don't you? Especially when sort of, there's a lot of pressure around investment, growth, everything, all those responsibilities. Actually having outside eyes come into it, and we're seeing this sort of big fractional revolution at the moment. There's some amazing companies who are doing that sort of thing, and they're absolutely right. They're saying, right, you can bring the right people in at the right times to help support your growth. And I think when you've got the experience you have and the stories you have and the the people you've worked with and network, that becomes a really valuable piece to come into it. So there's some exciting things you're doing right now. I know there's going to be some exciting things moving further forward as well.
Exactly.
We're in this interesting time, coming back to that whole thing about the industry, we're in this interesting time at the moment of what feels like, in our space, a period of opportunity and a period of change. On the positive side, you're seeing this collision of regulation, technology, opportunity, and volatility that creates a whole lot of opportunity and fast growth businesses alongside that. On the flip side, you're seeing the AI revolution in a negative light, allegedly, where you're saying, right, it's either going to be a complete challenge and wipe out the SaaS marketplace, or it's going to be something that accelerates the SaaS marketplace. And whoever you speak to, there's various different views on what and where that sits. From your experience and where you've sat, and seeing what we're doing and having this sort of bird's eye view of everything at the moment, what's it look like to you?
So I think it's so fascinating when you start looking, because obviously no one knows where things are going to end up. It could potentially go either way, but for me, I look at the technology and where does the technology come from? If you go back 20 years, it was FTPing, big software file. You have these large what you'd call migrations, right, from one version to another with loads of testing. It was hard work managing software, managing that technology, and then the underlying framework. So then, from the testing components that banks and buy side had to do before they rolled out a new version, where like an exchange upgrade would require you to have a new version of your full platform. Through to the decoupling of the exchange gateways and the underlying platform, and then to manage services, because it wasn't SaaS back then. It was managed services, right? Actually, we'll look after your platform on your side because we have the expertise. And I think this is what it comes down to, is the word expertise. Who still has the expertise on the technology? And yes, you can develop a certain level of expertise within a bank or within a buy side, but you have to question, like for me, I question, what is your alpha? As an organization, where does your alpha lie? Does it really lie in building platforms and building technologies? Or does it actually, it lies in the trading, right? For the people who are on the other side of the vendors, your alpha lies in the trading. So why would you have huge teams starting off just because they can, doesn't mean that they should. And it's very different as well, because obviously everyone's got their AI teams. It's different connecting Excel sheets and individual platforms and using AI to connect those and do analytics and look at unstructured data. That's very different to building a full trading platform. Can you trust AI to build a full back office platform and network? Not yet.
Definitely not
because
yet.
There are so many regulatory components, so many compliance requirements that sit underneath that you need to have a team who really understands that at its deepest level before you can develop that. And AI is just not there yet. So I think that, from a regulatory perspective, we're not there to develop that, and certainly not from a front office perspective or even a trading perspective. MiFID II obviously brought in regulations around algo trading. Do we need more tags? Do we need more data to know if AI has touched a trade? Absolutely. Who owns that trade at the end of the day? Who owns the decision making? And how do you define whether a trade and how a trade decision, where it came from, right? So there's so many things when it comes to AI and trading that just aren't strong enough as yet to really rely on AI being the underlying framework.
And I think what you're seeing, isn't it, is these companies who are creating this product. It's kind of, the wider picture is the whole buy and build as opposed to buy or build piece that we're talking here. And actually, when you're looking at SaaS companies, and this is why I come back to the accelerator as opposed to the replacer. Everyone's very excited and agile about what they can do to improve it. So for the purposes that you've just spoken about, predominantly regulatory, it's very, very difficult, I think, to replace in this sector. However, to enhance, which I think is exactly what it should be doing in the human debate, let alone the other side of the debate as well, to enhance suddenly it makes everything quicker and more it goes from a nice to have to a must have, because the benefits of what it's going to do to productivity and efficiency become that much greater.
A friend of mine who I was having some beers with the other day, he said, our team over the last 2 months have not written a line of code. Large ISV that most people would know, we have not written, my team have not written a line of code. We've been using AI, but what we do is we want to check it. I want to make sure that every line actually is accurate, that all of the parsers are doing what they say that they will do, because at the end of the day, it's on my head or my team's head to make sure that things work correctly. One of the things that ISVs do bring to the table as well is that they see multiple clients. They see what the requirements are. In a broader spectrum. So rather than just let's do what we want to do, we need to look at all of these clients, and it benefits everyone. Right. So it's something that I think is really important, particularly like that from that testing and compliance. It's not all on one person or one firm to build on, right?
Exactly right.
So accelerating and seeing those sort of like really sort of sky high projects that people have wanted to do for a very long time, but have been too busy bug fixing. We've got the time, we've got the resources to do that now. And that's what I hope to see, is that, developers don't disappear. And an old professor of mine I saw on LinkedIn said, computer science is not dead. In the same way that literature is not dead because of a spell checker coming in.
True.
Right? Just because you have something there doesn't mean that it does. It's it is. It has to be enhanced. And you have to look at what the tools are, because when you're building things, there are frameworks that need to continue to be built around it, so that platforms are scalable, and also that platforms are interoperable. And unless you have the experience for how to do it, there will be some bumps along the way.
And it also creates this interesting debate about there being a lot of companies who are springing up very quickly. I guess the barriers to entry of starting a firm at the moment are both quicker, cheaper, and faster alongside that, if we talk about enhancing again. Which means there's a more fragmented, we were talking about Fix earlier on, and more vendors because there's more new vendors that are coming in all the time at the same sort of stage anyway, and getting traction quicker than they've probably ever done before. So with a competitive field in this space, what are companies doing that are standing out? How have they adapt, and how do they sort of gain that market share and make their products stand out right now?
One of the things I love about that is we have gone through a phase over probably the last 10 years of a lot of consolidation. A lot of firms being sucked up by one or the other. And this is just really opening up that market again, because people are now able to get out. Exactly. And it's really important for people to produce and create. We are a creative industry. It doesn't feel like it sometimes when you're looking at it, but there is a lot of creativeness that comes in. Exactly, to building some of these solutions. There is also, the other side.
That's a really interesting way of putting it, actually. This being, I think it's underestimated as a creative industry. It's a really good way of looking at it.
No, I think it is. There's always new platforms that are being developed because there are holes. There are a lot of firms that are either spin-outs, and they're spinning off from larger organizations because they realize that I built this because I wasn't able to find it in my market. But to see that you weren't able to find it is a skill in itself, right? But there are a lot of firms, and it's really difficult to differentiate yourself now between yourself and the next. And you're seeing that across, the EMSs, the OMSs, you're seeing it along the sort of underlying network and technology providers. For me, it comes down to trust. how do you build trust in a market that is tiny? We, like the fintech, the financial our market, relative to a lot of the others that are out there, is a very, very small market. So it's so important that you do build trust, because everyone is talking to each other. Everyone has worked with somebody that knows someone that's used that platform, and you can't hide from it. Yeah. So for me, it's all about transparency.
Trust and transparency is such an important word across this whole industry, full stop. And actually, I hadn't thought about it, but it being put into that sort of category. And I think it comes down to, again, who you're dealing with. We've spoken about this before, right? A business who anyone gets involved in is judged effectively by the person who is speaking and the sales team to that individual. Yeah. So you could have the best company in the world and have one individual who goes out and speaks to them, and that person impression of that business is based off that individual. And I think that's such an incredibly important thing to look at, and it makes it incredibly important for you to get the right sales team and the right salespeople in place. Yeah. We've spoken about this before, but I think the evolution of a salesperson is in this industry has changed dramatically over, certainly the last, I've been in the space for 25, 26 years, but if you look at it over the last 5 to 10 years in particular, the profile of a top salesperson 10 years ago who relied effectively on a whole bunch of pre-sales and solution engineers and everyone else in between it, compared to where a salesperson is today, which is far closer, in my opinion, to a solutions engineer or a pre-sales person than it has been. Yeah, I think the proper right end of it. I think there's, we were talking before about buyer beware and seller beware. In the knowledge place of people who are being spoken to, and the knowledge of the salespeople who are then doing that, I think has become closer and closer all the time.
You can't.
I'm interested to hear your take on what good looks like right now.
You're not just a relationship builder anymore. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think that to be a good salesperson isn't just about going out and having long lunches, and actually it's funny because you go to the restaurants at lunchtime and everyone's on the sparkling water now, right? yeah. Most of the time.
So in terms of music, like we both back from Amsterdam recently, and there was a lot of sparkling water.
At breakfast. And I think that it's the time. Things have changed 100%. There are so many different styles of sales people, and the ones that I think speak the loudest and perform well are those that have a really good understanding of what their clients' requirements are, what their clients are looking for. I think they are very good storytellers as well. Yeah. I think storytelling in sales, to be able to...
Tying it back to the information they've got by listening first,
Yeah, 2 ears, 1 mouth. You have to listen to what are the problems that your peer, or to share, these are the problems that your peers are having. Yeah. And this is how we solve them. And if you can have a really strong narrative around that to make the person you're speaking to think, that's exactly what it is. And sometimes people who are on the buy side or are the buyers don't necessarily know how to articulate it. So by articulating it for them and them saying, okay, yes, or it sounds a bit cliche, but to show them that there is a problem with something or a process before they even realize that there is the problem. I think that is sales saying, we have seen these issues. This is how they were solved. This is why you should come and trust us, because we have resolved a lot of these things that you're coming to us with already. And it's a story, and it has a pathway. And I think that those stories are important for people to see and understand where you're coming from as an organization. So trust, transparency, and sometimes that transparency is sometimes difficult to lead with. Because when you lead with transparency, you're saying, we're not a firm who doesn't have any bugs, because that's never going to be true. But you're saying this is how you're going to be at the front line of anything that's going on within the organization, to be able to see it before we've even picked up the phone. Yeah. Right? And I think that's really, really important for clients to say, I want to see on my screen what's going on before I even know that it's happened, before someone picks up the phone or I see an email coming through.
I think with that increased pressure on everyone to perform, to have that sort of any lack of any downtime, and the confidence that that's going to be something there which is pretty much 24/7, reliable, sustainable, etc., etc., becomes a really important part of the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's being able to tell your story.
So if you're sat there and you are looking at the ingredients of a world-class salesperson right now, you're saying, right, if that's who I'm going to bring into the team, that's who we're going to nail it in this space. Give me 2 or 3 of the core credentials that you're looking for. You've mentioned a few there. But you're saying, look, this is the tick list. If they've got these 3 key non-negotiables, let's say, that is going to make them, separate them, gain them their alpha, separate them from the rest of the pack to the very best in class. What would that look like to you?
So I think one of the things you have to do is separate, first of all, are you looking at a senior hire or a junior hire? Because they're going to look very different, right? Because I think part of the responsibility of a sales leader is to have a really good range of senior and junior hires, because you want to bring in people who who you're going to be able to grow. So if you're looking at the senior space, number one is always going to be relationships, right? Who are you going to bring to our table that you can just pick up the phone and pull in? Right? Everyone knows it's not going to happen in 5 minutes. Right? It's going to take time for it to close. But who are you going to bring to the table in the first week? An understanding of the technology, someone who can actually talk about and has the experience, not necessarily specifically in the space that you're in, but alongside that. Credibility, absolutely. And often, you can tell this from, your first conversation. Is this person able to articulate his own story first? Because if you can't articulate your own story, then you're going to have trouble articulating somebody else's story. So it's how do you build that, and it's rapport. Can I build?
If so, they're done.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you build a rapport with somebody that you've never met before? And that's again easy. Like, it's easy to see. Then you will have some red flags that there is a certain level of, you need to do your own research about that person as well. Always.
That's the beauty of this space, isn't it? There is a network that pretty much can find out that sort of information. But so often people don't go down that route. It's like, we're there, we trust our gut, we'll go through it, and it always surprises me about how backwards that element of it all is.
But then sort of going back to that question as well, though, for them to understand the technology, and one of the questions I would always ask is, tell me about the place that you're at or that you've been at, and tell me about the software that they sell. And if they can't articulate that. It's a great point. So that ability to sort of storytell, that ability to information gather, that ability to have credibility around what you're talking about, to build the trust and transparency, that's what makes the makeup of a great salesperson today, which I think has evolved a little, like you said, from the sort of more superficial relationship building to where it is today isn't a seismic leap. No.
But I think it needs something there which has got a little bit more substantive than it's ever been before. So we've got when we've got a great sales team, the success, I think, of a SaaS business to really navigate the next steps for them is to have a sales team that will cooperate seamlessly with marketing and with product. And if there's a couple of companies that are immediately pictured in my head where you can see that symbiotic relationship and then 100%. The result of where it goes and how it moves through. Conversely,
and sorry, just to stop you there, I think the big thing is having a marketing person who really understands the product, who spent the time to learn and understand why that product is being built.
You're absolutely right on that. I think there's a lot of people who come into the marketing world, coming back to your point about creativity beforehand, in a very different sort of way. The days of it being the colouring in department, I think, are a long way off. And actually, outbound and inbound sales now requires a marketing backup and air support that has real credibility about what it can do. And there's some great examples of that out there in the industry. Many of them were out there last week who we were speaking to. And I think that sort of connective tissue is really important. But it's also people get it wrong a lot.
I think people are busy. I don't think that they necessarily get it wrong. I don't think that they are
intentional about how they put the three together.
Exactly. It's not intentional. I think people are just very busy with, VCs, PE backing that the majority of the, firms have behind them. It's about how am I reporting upwards? Are we ensuring that we're getting the most out of our sales team? It's, these firms are almost quite siloed to a certain extent, the product team managing the product, marketing and sales. And actually, when you start thinking about what is the thread that pulls them all together, obviously they all go up to a CEO, but it's not their responsibility to make sure they're talking to each other. What I think happens often is that the product are always coming out with new shiny tools, offerings. Marketing, like, okay, let's talk about this new shiny offering. Sales, here you go, this is what we've sent out. Go do your thing. And I think there just needs to be a bit of a loop back across all of those things. And often it doesn't happen, which is, for me, it can be quite surprising that these conversations aren't happening of, all right, here are the tools. This is what we're going out with. Sales team, this is the messaging we want you to send out. What actually hits, what doesn't hit? What works, what doesn't work? And then feeding that back through the marketing department, through the team themselves, just continuous refinement of that messaging, because actually, who is at the front line of the organization? It's the sales and the account management team.
Yeah.
And you want to ensure that you're giving them the right tools, and that you're actually spending the time to get the feedback from them to refine.
It's so important, isn't it? You're right that the feedback from there is quite often, when you've got those egomaniacal, top-down businesses, and saying that this is how we're going to do it, and there's no feedback from the team, it's a really difficult time for them to grow. But when you've got people who listen, and some of the best leaders, both in sales and in companies who I've seen and worked with in this space, they're great at understanding their team and listening to the team and spending time with it and giving the channels to be able to put those things together. And when you've got those three working in unison, as we say, I can think of classic examples directly in my head at the moment of the companies who've gone from here to there, who've secured some of the funding and over the last couple of years with the most difficult time to reach that or had exits, etc. They've really nailed that particular point. Yeah. And I think they've also worked intentionally on getting world-class high-performance sales teams. Now that's a whole show, a whole book, a whole case study on its own. But if you're looking at creating a high-performance sales team and thinking about where that goes, I know you think that there's a number of different ingredients, but it always starts with the leadership that you bring into that. And I think when you again see successful raises and the right then CROs or sales leaders come into it behind it, that's quite often the thing. They're not necessarily saying, right, here's the target, we've got to go out and do it, or here's the thing. It's about getting that first and then having everything else move sequentially after it. Tell us what that looks like to you.
For me, so great salespeople good salespeople have a lot of energy. All salespeople have loads of energy. Keep going. But great salespeople also have discipline alongside it. Yeah. Right? And it's that discipline that I think really, really differentiates one salesperson from the next. And where does that discipline come? It's something that's learned. It doesn't always come naturally. And then you ask yourself, okay, where is it learned from? Actually, if you see your leader, your sales lead, your CEO, actually showing what does discipline look like. And this is something that I talk about often, and I'm running a workshop on, is something called that the Greeks called eudaimonia, which is living with virtue. What are the Greek virtues? They go through courage, justice, and modern psychology now looks at
stoicism.
That's all the stoicism. Yeah, absolutely. Adds things like zest, honesty, gratitude. But how do you actually systematically add that to your day? So you're using it and you're building the foundation. So the way I've always seen it is that your sales leader is there to build really, really strong foundations in the team and teach how do you build strong foundations across your energy, your work, and your love. Those are three things I speak about. And actually, it's so important for that foundation, because when you have really strong foundations, you can have an off day. How quickly does it take you to come back? Everyone has an off day. But how quickly do you bounce back from that off day? Yeah. And how long does it keep you out from?
And what's the impact of that off day, not only on yourself, but the team around you and everything else that's around them, right? Yeah,
exactly. Or if it's a day, or is it a week? Yeah. Because everyone can have an off day, fine. But as soon as it becomes longer than a day, it is immensely impactful. Yeah. And then the way I've always seen it is a sales leader should build those foundations, and then it's up to the sales team to build on top of that.
Set the standards and
Yeah, exactly.
There's a phrase I've always loved, which is the leader sets the pace of the team. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about there, isn't it?
100%.
In every aspect of it. And I think the concept of discipline in sales has got different things. I think when sometimes you think of a top performer, you think of this maverick, etc. And maybe their system work and their all of that sort of stuff is a little bit slacking, but you can make excuses for it. I don't think that works anymore. And I think in a world of data and outbound, the ability to be disciplined behind everything else is incredibly important. There's lots of different types of salespeople, but everywhere underneath it needs to be built on substance as opposed to sand that maybe you could have got away with a little while ago.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about discipline, and this is where kind of this AI stream across the sales organisation is really important as well.
Yeah.
Actually using AI systematically.
Yeah.
Because like we said earlier, the sales team are the front line to your business, right? The amount of information your sales team have is immense. If you're not harvesting it, you're losing data.
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to lose data if you're not not really understanding what's going on person to person and always call to call, and using an AI tool to say, okay, these are the trends that we're seeing. A lot of these firms have huge amounts of data, but not harvesting to see where the trends are and what people are saying collectively.
There's nothing that sounds glamorous about the utilisation of the CRM properly. Or
Everyone hates it, isn't it?
But I genuinely believe that it is the unglamorous stuff that allows the glamorous stuff to happen.
How do you do it easily? And this is what it comes down to, right? And actually, this is where these AI tools should be used effectively, because now it can be done actually quite easily. And someone said to me, but I worry about my team getting a bit lazy and not necessarily being involved in the conversation, because when they're writing down their notes, you're paying more attention. I was like, well, that says something about the team. The person. Because actually you want your team to be present, just actively listening. And having their own notes anyway, to be able to fall back on and make sure, because AI is not always going to be right. AI is going to
approximately right.
It's approximately right. So
some horrific hallucinations, and all of a sudden it's a very different sale.
Exactly. No, so I think that there's work to be done in our space. And I think we're going through some really exciting times because it's changing.
I totally agree. And I think that sales space is right at the forefront of it, certainly from what we're seeing in our data and where the action and the sort of heat map is at the moment. Good salespeople, high demand, high expectations on them at the same sort of time. When you get that bit right, there's a lot of opportunity. Let's finish on you. So we start at the front about what you're doing and hit the people you're speaking to at the moment. I know there's going to be more stuff that you're going to be involved in. And
I think I did mention also, the fixed trading. I've been working with the fixed community quite heavily. Brilliant team.
I keep seeing new announcement of new fixed members, and I'm thinking, I know who's behind that. Certainly part of the squad for it.
And I think that it's that one non-profit within not-for-profit organisation that's really pulling the organisations across buy side, sell side, the vendors and the exchanges together, just making sure that there's a cohesive story across all of them, and it's important that it's there.
And what else? So if you're thinking, people are watching this, enjoying what we're talking about sales and thinking, right, I need to revolutionise my sales team or take my sales team further forward, where can you add value and who should be reaching out to you?
So I'm doing 3 things at the moment. One of those is, because as we said, that glue between CPO, CRO, CMO, sometimes you just need a second pair of eyes. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a long-term contract. Like it's actually someone that can come in, help for a period of time, set things up and really show that CRO, CMO, that these are the threads that need to be in place. And most people, once it's there, people are pretty capable of continuing it, right? So running sort of 6-month agreements with firms within capital markets on that side. How are people utilising their biggest accounts? How are people growing their biggest accounts as well? It's sort of a similar thing, like what are the threads being strung across the right parts of the organisation to grow their largest accounts? But then on a smaller, like kind of half-day basis, AI in sales has become really topical. and how people, what I'm seeing is it's not being used systematically across a sales team. So sales teams like, should I use it? Should I not use it? What data can I put in? What can't I do?
Who's opting in? Who's opting out?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you'll have these great salespeople who are like, I'm using AI for everything, and others who are like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. So actually, how do you ensure that your team are all moving in the same direction?
Yeah.
That's just like a half-day thing, and the one that I'm very, very passionate about as well is half day. It's a heroic clarity, an anti-fragile confidence workshop, which kind of takes you through the sort of stoic thinking, positive psychology around setting goals and ensuring that you're going to achieve them in the going forward. And that goes back to the frameworks we were talking about. How do you build your own personal framework and your own foundation so that they're so strong that everything else kind of rises above it?
I think that's again coming back to the whole essence of a good salesperson. That confidence and clarity is things I think people do generally struggle with.
Yeah.
And this is sales is a sport, and sport relies on confidence and momentum, and building that sort of stuff into it, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So lots of people should be reaching out to you, Sapna.
Absolutely.
Listen, lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Well, we got there.
We did, exactly.
We got there. And thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I am. We're going to definitely do more of these. I think we were speaking more about, this is a subject where I think we can get people together and start to debate a few things about high performance and world-class sales. It's a passion of mine. I know it's a passion of yours. You'll be seeing more of Sapna in episodes to come through in slightly different formats.
Yeah.
But thank you for watching, and we will see you very shortly on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.